Okay. I want to begin this video with telling everyone why I'm wearing shades. And it's mainly because I want people to think about what I'm looking at. And what I'm looking at is not just a physical thing, it's a very interesting idea. How is change done? How can we change a changing process? When we try to change a changing process, does that mean we're accelerating changes that are happening? Or are we changing something that needs to break in order to change? Are we even accelerating certain systems to their breaking points? Why does a system have to even break? These are ideas that lead to some good questions, some questions that point to a greater space of being. So in other words, to change a system, we need to understand the system. And to understand the system, you need to really look at what's going on, because you are part of a system. Right now, you are holding and working, better yet, with ideas. With some ideas that are relevant to school, some ideas relevant to social behavior, some ideas relevant to your path, where you're going. Now, it's really important to see yourself and to also see yourself deeply, to really look at what you're doing, where you are. And you will innately see the system that you're in through yourself. When you observe yourself, you see how you're behaving, you see how the system is behaving as an individual human being. Then you begin to, for yourself, really perceive and see how effective your system of living is. How effective is your operating system? Your operating system that begins from the moment you wake up to the moment you sleep. Even during sleep, you're operating, but you're less conscious of it. It doesn't mean you're not doing anything. It just means you're less aware of what is happening. Only you receive it through conscious segments, which are interpreted as dreams. Now, a system that you need to observe for yourself when you look at yourself. When you're in a sense studying yourself, we're always told to study this book, that topic, that subject, that idea, whatever. Study your idea, study who you are. In other words, either look at yourself in the reflection of a mirror that is on your bathroom wall, or go sit by a pond and really look at your reflection with the stars above you. Really think about why you're thinking and how you're thinking. So in other words, one of the first systems that needs to be observed by you is how you use language and how you speak, your system of speaking. The way you speak is, in a sense, what you're attracting, because that's what you're communicating. It's literally like updating your post on Facebook and having people receive it. So the way you speak is suggesting who you are, and who you are suggests what you need and what you want to receive from life or from existence. A lot of my talks really look at what's here and what exists. And when you look at what exists, some illusions break. Some illusions never existed. It's as if you were creating a certain condition, and therefore, because you were creating that condition, people were seeing you create that and were reacting to it in that way. You don't need these conditioned programs that are given to you throughout your life. When I see there's a playground right there, when I'm looking at it and I see children there, and I see the child very energetic. It's very lively. And the reason it's lively is it has its attention not on everything. It is not thinking about what the political system is. It's not thinking about all these other things. It doesn't need to self-reflect because the child feels free to play. Therefore, playfulness is also a very interesting approach to life. Try to discover what playfulness means, whether it's birds flying behind your head or whether it's you laughing at something that doesn't make sense, that discover what playfulness means. However, also keep in mind that we're not children, especially if you're understanding what I'm saying. And recognize that there are some systems that you're considering and that is how you're living. So be observant of those systems and try to discover really who you are and why you're here. I mean, that's pretty much what we can do. Every human being can really look at what it means to be a human being. So do that for yourself. Also understand that culture is, when I say culture and society, I'm really pointing to media that is telling you what culture is, what is relevant, and what you need to have your attention on. It could be fashion trends, it could be anything. It could be movies you're seeing, history you're reading. So, if I were to say this more effectively, I would say, when you open yourself up to media, like television, there's some very good things you can receive from it as a person living in the city, in this environment. And also there's some negative things you receive from it. The good things is you understand what's going on. So in other words, you're more engaged in human interaction and human communication, even non-human communication as well. It's like your engagement with a television show or a sound or a song, you hear on the radio. So what I would say is be aware of where you're stepping. In other words, what room you're going in, what ideas are present. There's always more rooms, more open and freer ideas than the ones we have. But at times we need to walk the path we choose to walk. Therefore, questioning and really trying to observe the system requires parts of the system to be broken. You need to question, in a sense, why am I behaving this way, and why am I, for example, seeing a soap opera that is, showing how humans are in these conditions. Do I need to be in that condition? It's you also need to get comfortable with speaking very honestly with yourself. You can lie to anybody, but never lie to yourself. Don't act. Who you are is a changing process. You're not a static presence. You may think you're static, but we all die. We all change. Change is something to really observe, and therefore your systems are changing as well. But where are you keeping yourself in this change? Are you, expanding your awareness? Are you seeing more out of every day you're living? A good life. Someone once said, a very fulfilling life is a life where you're experiencing life in all its dimensions. You're living vibrantly. There's vitality. And especially if you're living in a city or around these systems or cultural networks or, media, you also are somewhere where you can be a very good problem solver. You can really look at what people are doing and share your views. I mean, that is the whole point of these videos, I believe. Now, self-reflection is a very important process. It is not always an easy one, because we don't want to enter the levels of nothingness. What that means is that we always want to be certain based on something, based on some ideology, based on some form. We want to have our form. We want to keep form because we trust the form. The form is here and we can see it. However, how can one be comfortable with the formless? How can one even approach it? And you see that if you want to approach formless, you need to ask yourself what presence really means. What does your presence mean? And if your presence means a shape, then you will be more comfortable with the shape. If your presence moves beyond shape, in other words, as existence, you're not just this form, you're also greater perceptions and points of view of the form you are now. Your consciousness is not limited to only the relevance of your physicality and your body. It is expansive as it changes in how it is perceiving itself through thought. When you go through that state, there is a integration or a total fading of ideas into an existential now. When you hear a lot of these Zen masters or Eckhart Tolle or Ram Dass, all these people who talk about the here and now, why do you think they're talking about being here and now? Why? Some people think, our world now is not a good world. What do you mean be here and now? I want to be in my own entertained, self-entertained, happy bubble. Some people. But when they say to be here and now, they are telling you, look at what's here and look at what is now. What is happening to you right now? Where are you? And when you're there, you don't need to indulge in these programs of identity which are created by your every step. In other words, you can be the blank page rather than all these words that are written on it are sometimes not written by you, by others. It is the naturalness. It is a very natural feeling. The greatest sense a person can have into improving his environment or any system is to become one with it. I'm not saying this in a be one with everything, but I'm saying let the oneness be experienced by your individuality. Let your individuality experience its collective intelligence, its collective presence. It moves beyond ideas. It is experiential. It is entered through silence. When we reach silence, that is when we do not need to speak. We do not need to enter terminology that creates worlds and limited views of our own potential. We don't need to. We could simply be here and be at peace. And once you're here and now, you can really be aware of what is going on, not what is going on in the past. If your ideas of yourself are based on the past, you're not really utilizing your full potential here. So you don't need to carry guilt. You don't need to carry sin. You just need to understand that when you are behaving, when you're working, when you are communicating, it needs to be clear. And what is clear is not something that is affected by views of how you should be, or how, or what you're not doing. You're okay. You're here. I really feel like taking these glasses off, but I made a very powerful statement at the beginning, so I'm going to keep them on. All systems will change eventually. Know that in 1,000 years, your children's children's children will be living in a different system. You are affecting that. We are simply rocks thrown, and we are always creating ripples. These ripples cannot distort the surface or greater reflections of how our world needs to be. For example, in a pond setting. But we need to let our silence really show us actions be ones that are helpful, and ones that if our children's 1,000 years ago saw us, they would be like, they made good choices for humanity, for the planet, and eventually for all of existence. So keep this in mind, and with that, there's always greener pastures.